Hey everyone, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about one of the most important concepts of any programming language, and specifically Python, and that is variables. So variables are essentially one of the most important things that you're going to do and pretty much used in every single code that you're going to write, which is very, very important. So I just want to talk about it. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to show you some examples, show you how it's used, and also we're going to have some fun practices later on in the practice session that we're going to have in the next video. All right, so let's get into it, guys. So what is a variable? Now, if you actually go back to the previous lessons and look at what we've learned so far. We've learned about inputs, we've learned about prints and mixing prints together, manipulating strings. One of the things that you want to remember is that when it comes to programming, it's all about referring to the data. All right, so you essentially want to refer to the information that you've received, whether from the system, from the server, from the user, whatever that is. You want to refer to that info. So if you take a look at this right now, if you run this, it's going to ask for my name, right? So whatever, but again, it's not going to do anything with it. It put my name like weird, Senna, whatever. So it's not gonna do anything with it. But what if I want to refer to this? What if I want to come back to my name and use it in a sentence later on, right? Because we don't want to have these long lines of code again where we are just writing these things, right? Remember, we were printing and we had your name is Sean and you're 24 years old or something like that. We can't have that all the time, right? So, and also we can't constantly ask for the same information. What if I want to use the same information multiple times throughout the program? You're not going to ask for the same information over and over, right? So variables are basically the solution to this. And the idea with a variable is that you're essentially storing an information or code into a variable, a value essentially, and you can refer to it later on. The best way to imagine a variable is that, let's say you ask for someone's phone number, right? If you just get their phone number, later on you're going to be confused. Maybe a couple months later, if you look at that phone number, you're going to be confused. You're going to be like, whose number is this, right? Because you're not going to remember that. But when you get someone's phone number, you're not just going to get their phone number, you're also going to get their name. So their name is essentially the variable name, because that's what's going to happen is that basically when you look at the phone number, it doesn't mean anything to you. But when you look at the name, you're like, oh, okay, this phone number belongs to that person. So that is basically a variable. Essentially, you're naming the code that you're writing. That way you actually can refer to it later. All right. So look at this one, for example. We got input here, right? It's asking for my first name. And what if if I want to add a variable to this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just write whatever. Let's say we call this first name. Okay. And equals, and we're going to say input. So just like that, I gave this entire input code a variable name called first name. Now, a few rules about variables you want to remember. The first one is that they can be only letters, numbers, and underscores. All right. So again, we got letters here. I don't have any numbers, and we got an underscore. So that's the only thing you can use to create a variable. Another thing with the variable is that you can't start it with a number. So that's just another thing you want to remember. You cannot have a number in the beginning of the variable. You can have it in the middle, it's fine, but not in the beginning. All right. Another thing is that you can't have a space in a variable. If you add a space, it's gonna mess it up. See, guys? So you just want to, letters, numbers, and underscores, and doesn't start with a number. So again, we got the first name here. Now, here's the interesting part. Again, you can refer to this variable later on. For example, if I want to print my name, I don't have to use Sean again like this, right? What I can do is I can say first name. So that is the variable. Now, keep in mind, because we're not using a string anymore, we're not going to put it inside a quotation mark like this. We're going to put it outside, essentially just inside the parentheses, because this is a code. This is not just a string anymore. All right. So just keep that in mind, because if you put this thing in there in the quotation mark, it's gonna actually just show first name. All right. So keep in mind, it's just gonna say first name. That's not gonna work out. So we're gonna use first name. So again, we're gonna take someone's name and then we're gonna display it. Take a look. Just gonna say, what's your first name? Sean. And it's gonna just display my name, Sean. See, we just refer to this using variables. Now, another nature of a variable, which is very important to remember, is that it's a variable, meaning that it actually changes. All right. So remember this. Think about this for a second. So let's say we got our first name here. Okay. So, and we're going to print first name. So right now, if I, again, same thing, it's going to be like whatever you enter, right? But let's say we go here and do one more time. We say first name. Okay. And then equal, we're going to ask for this input one more time. And this time I'm just going to say, let's just ask a different question. What's your first name? Again, what's your first name again? So we're asking for their first name one more time, right? So then if I actually go to print and print the first name again, so let's see what happens. So let's save this, and I'm gonna say, what's your first name? Sean. So that prints my name, Sean. What's your first name again? Let's say we're gonna do Jake. And now it is Jake. So keep in mind that variables are literally variables, mean that they actually can change in value. So that's something you want to remember. All right. So another cool example, again, we're going to have a fun practice session in the next lesson. But another thing that you can do is that you can refer to these things in a print, right? We talked about this. So let's say I want to, well, we just want to make this a little bit nicer. So we got the first name, right? We're going to say well, let's just start with a string. Your first name is, and we're just going to say plus, and there you go. So now we got like a sentence here, and then the first name data that someone entered. So if I run this, we're just going to say Sean. And it says your first name is Sean. See, guys? So we can refer to this data so easily using variables. So keep that in mind, guys. This is what a variable is. Just like kind of quickly recap this for you. You can refer to variables in any parts of your program. You can change it if you want. So that's what a variable is. It just makes your code cleaner, and you can actually refer to information without repeating it over and over again. And also remember that variables can only be letters, numbers, and underscores, and they cannot start with a number. So just keep that in mind. They cannot start with a number, but they can have a number in the middle. All right. So just keep that in mind, and the value changes constantly. If you want to, at least you can change their value. So that is a variable. We're going to do a fun practice session. I want to do something really cool, and you're going to see like how really variables come to play. And you're gonna see kind of the power of variables and why they're so useful, and they're gonna make your life a lot easier. All right, guys. So make sure you put this to practice, especially in the next lesson. We're gonna talk about this, but let me know if you have any questions about variables. They should be very simple to understand, but we're gonna go over it, and you're gonna see it more in action. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.